One thing that's come up quite a lot in the times that we have gone to schools and I've had the opportunity to speak with young people and teenage girls in particular is this issue of sexting, and particularly males pressuring them to send nudes. It's something that's really actually been increasing, I would say, as an issue over the years since I started with Trulife in 2018 up until now. Nearly every school we go to, I've had at least 1, 2, 3 girls come and speak to me about the fact that they don't know what to do and they don't know how to tell their parents about the fact that they are getting pressured by a boy in their school for nudes. One story that really shocked me in particular, but I think it really just illustrates the reality of this, and again, just those dangers of overexposing young people to social media, and them dabbling with that, and not being aware of their own rights and their own safety, is that a young girl came to me and told me that she had sent a nude to a grade 8 boy in quite an established private school in KZN. And within 2 days, that nude had spread to the matrics of that school and the matric bodies of 2 other esteemed private schools in the country. And girls in her school in grade 11 started bullying her and calling her horrible names, obviously because those grade 11 girls had found out from their grade 11 friends in these other high schools. So that was just quite shocking for me to see now that this young girl had become a victim, and had been labeled by something that a lot of other people in her school were already doing. And it also just shows the negative impacts that it has on a child's mental health and a teenager's mental health because of the stigma and the bullying and the shame that comes with that. But more so the fact that once they have done that thing, they have no one that they feel they can talk to.
So the other day I was having a conversation with a young girl. She was in grade 7, and for the story, let's call her Jess. And I was chatting with Jess because she had been caught in possession of drugs. She had weed. And in fact, she actually got weed dropped off at a specific location that she could go get it and receive it. And we found her with these drugs on her person. And so I was here having this conversation after we had had a report that this had happened, and we managed to find her, have this conversation, and I'm sitting down having a chat with her, trying to figure out, like, how did she get here, and how did this happen, how was she in this moment. And in chatting with her and in processing this with her, it came about that she had been doing drugs and doing weed to try and cope with everything that was going on. And in the conversation I'm having with her, she was crying, and just so much emotion, just because, one, she had obviously been caught, but also because you could see that she was dealing with a lot more than just an addiction problem, and she was dealing with something that was much deeper, and she really was struggling with depression or anxiety, and really just saying that she doesn't know how else to cope. She doesn't know where to go. She doesn't know who to turn to. She doesn't know how to get help. And so she found that when she did drugs, it would at least allow her to have a moment of rest, or a moment of peace, or a moment where she didn't feel the pain and was able to numb the stuff. And even in the conversation with her, she was saying that she had tried speaking with her mom before, and at the time her mom actually went out and bought her a vape to try and help her with the situation. And what was crazy for me in this moment was that, like, there are parents and there are families who are dealing with young people. This girl was grade 7, like 13 years old, doing drugs, having a vape that her mom purchased for her because she didn't even know how to handle the situation. She didn't know how to help her kid. She was overwhelmed with the stuff that was coming from her own child, and she didn't even know how to help in the moment, and so actually ended up giving something that was probably another addiction, another thing that was going to cause this child more harm. And I think that, for me at least, like, sitting there hearing this story and engaging with her, I just realized that the kids are carrying a lot, and there's a lot of stuff going on behind the scenes. I mean, this girl, if you looked at her, you would think that everything was good and everything was fine and there was no problems, and here she was struggling with mental health, struggling with depression, struggling with anxiety, a whole bunch of problems at home and a whole bunch of issues, and here she is trying to cope with other substances, and so in the moments I just realized how much help this generation needs.
Over the past few years being in Trulife, I've had the opportunity to see that there are so many young kids out there who are just so lost. And the reality is we live in a world where there are just so many pressures, whether it's from social media, from movies, friends, just the culture, that are telling kids who they need to be, who they should be, and being confronted headfirst with the reality that we have a generation of people who have no concept of their identity and just really don't know who they are is really scary and really sad. Recently, we were on a tour in Johannesburg, and at one of the schools there, we were doing a workshop with the grade 5 girls. And during this workshop, I asked a question, and I asked, all of you know that you have something really special and unique to offer the world. And normally during that part of the talk, there are a few girls nodding their heads, but this time there was absolutely no response. And so I felt the need to ask the question again. And I said, put your hand up if you feel or if you know you have something unique and special to offer the world. And not a single hand went up. And my heart leaped out of my chest, and I could not believe that not a single one of those little girls believed they had something to offer. And I kind of just said, girls, that's ridiculous. And just spent the next few minutes encouraging them that each one of them has something to offer and are unique and are valuable. And that's what I love about being a part of Trulife, is that we get to speak right to the identity of these kids and meet them where they're at and confront them when they feel like they're helpless or when they feel like they have nothing to offer. We get to come alongside them and encourage them and maybe tell them things that nobody else would have ever have told them.
So last week, I got a call from a friend of mine who has a younger stepsister. Let's call her Rachel. And this friend was phoning, desperate to try find some help for the problem that her sister's facing. Last Friday after dinner, Rachel and her family had already eaten, gone upstairs, and there was a knock at the door. And her dad goes to the door and finds 2 paramedics standing there. And they proceed to tell him that they have news that one of his daughters is trying to kill herself. You can imagine the panic, but slowly the story came out that Rachel has been bullied quite severely by a boy in her grade over the last few months. This boy and his friends saying things like, she's worthless, no one really likes her, the world would be better without her, and she should just kill herself. And so Rachel, it seems, has done what most teenagers do when faced with anxiety or a confusing situation. She's turned to the internet, and her search history showed multiple searches about suicide, including questions like how much Panado to take to overdose and how to hide the signs from your parents and teachers. But it turns out that Rachel found something else online. She also found an online group, a community, I guess, of teenagers just like her. And what they've taught Rachel over the past few months is how to self-harm. And so she's been cutting herself while building up the courage to do something far, far worse. And so that knock at the door from those paramedics was caused by a group of friends at her school who, when they couldn't get through to Rachel on her cell phone, took matters into their own hands and called emergency services. And so the story came out. And it just brings to mind how the teenagers of this day and age are facing a minefield. Rachel now, as a 13-year-old girl who is creative, good at school, has a strong group of friends, is slowly starting to rebuild a very broken, dark life. And for me, it also reminded me that even the adults in people like Rachel's lives are often overwhelmed or ill-equipped to handle these situations. And so it's just such a powerful reminder of why Trulife exists and why we need to continue to exist.
So, being out at productions, or rather out at our schools that we visit, it really exposes you to a lot of hurt and a lot of pain that these young people go through. And recently we were up in Joburg and we were visiting one of these schools, and this day we were doing these workshops and we were unpacking a little bit more about sexting and just a bunch of topics. And afterwards we broke up into these smaller workshops, and I'll never forget this young man, really, I call him a man, but he was a young boy, came up to me and he said he felt the need to share something with me. And I was like, sure man, let's go and chat. And so we go. I'm thinking it's just more something that is, not crazy, or it's not as major. But turns out he disclosed information about how he was sexually assaulted and how afterwards he'd been having nightmares about how this encounter happened, and he doesn't know how to deal with it. And I must say, I at first I didn't know what to do, and you could see the desperation in his eyes, saying like, "Hey, I need help." And even us being there, you could see that it was almost a chance for him to finally disclose information. And I think that's one thing I will say, is that young people are really struggling and are wanting somebody to talk to. And I was able to be there, being a representative of Trulife, to really be someone that can be a brother, a friend, but more than that, be somebody that I can point them to someone who can help them. And I know I chatted to the school counselor, and the boy went on to actually visit the school therapist, and he's going to continue to walk this journey. But it was just crazy to me that there are young people who come in every day to school and they're dealing with so much, and yet they feel like they can't talk to anyone. And I think that is what really encourages me or inspires me and continuously motivates me to be a part of Trulife, because I know that we get to play a part in being an ear and being somebody that these students can talk to about all types of pain and hurt that they go to. And man, I'm just super excited to continuously do the work that we do, because I'm hoping that we would encourage the students to make these brave choices so that they can have better futures.